Welcome to Improve Your English Writing, video number 66, which is the first part of a two-part series on quotations. And specifically, we're going to be covering some general comments about quotations, omitted material, what do you do when you omit material in a quotation, inserted material, allowable changes in a quotation, a source citation, and using sick. So if you'd like to get notifications for the series, please click subscribe. If you like the video or think others will find it useful, please click like. And check out links to books and videos in the description, like a link to the companion volume here. So let's get to some general comments about quotations. So a direct quotation should support, explain, or illustrate the document's purpose or conclusion. And that is, well, what are some of these things? Well, it could be evidence, it could be a well-written explanation, or a statement requiring a response. These are just some examples. Quotations should not just be borrowed material or even fill material. So you just don't want to say, here's a subject, and you do a whole bunch of quotations. That isn't what you're supposed to do. It's supposed to support, explain, or illustrate your purpose or conclusion. And don't overuse quotations. Otherwise, the reader will just glance right over them. Do the following when reading a source, and a direct quotation might be included in your document. So you're trying to support your paper's purpose. You're reading some source material and you come along something, you say, oh, I might want to include that. Well, here's what you want to do when you find something you might want to use as a direct quotation. You want to document the source information, record it in a separate quotations area of the document. And this is because you may want to evaluate it with other direct quotations you find. So remember, you said this might be included in your document. So instead of just inserting it into your document, maybe you'll find a better quote. Maybe you'll find a better illustration. Maybe you'll find a better explanation. So that way you can put it in the source area. You can compare it with other direct quotations and find the best one to use, or maybe not use it at all. So what you want to do is document the source, probably put it in a separate quotations area. And then the third thing you want to do is you want to double check the wording, spelling, and punctuation, especially if you type it in now. If you're just copying and pasting, you probably don't need to double check it. But if you're typing in the quotation, definitely double check the wording, spelling, or punctuation, because we'll soon find out that a quotation, when you do direct quotation, you should exactly match the wording, spelling, and punctuation. That's why you want to double check it. So what do you do about omitted material? Let's say you have a long quotation when you want to omit a middle section of something. Well, what you do is you use an ellipse. So where you omit material or delete material in the middle of it, you use an ellipse. And an ellipse is 3 spaced periods like this. So use an ellipse to show omitted material in a direct quotation. And you add a period before an ellipse to show that the words before the ellipse and the words after the ellipse form a complete sentence, even if parts of the sentence are omitted. So that's why you put a period. So sometimes people are confused. They'll see 4 periods, or they'll see an ellipse and they'll see 4 periods and they're confused. Why is it 3, not 4? The reason there could be a 4th period, as I'm going to call it, is that period shows that what comes before and after the ellipse form a complete sentence. Do not use an ellipse before the first word of a quotation. So you do not need to start off a quotation with an ellipse. That's what this is saying. And you don't need to end a quotation with an ellipse. So do not use an ellipse before the first word of the quotation or after the last word of the quotation, unless the sentence is, this is the only 2 times, or is there 3? I'm pretty sure there's only 2. The only 2 times that you would put an ellipse at the beginning or at the end. 1, it's in MLA style. And 2, if it's intentionally left incomplete. That's going to be at the end. So if you intentionally leave the sentence incomplete, and it's meant to be incomplete, then you would use an ellipse. So for more information about using an ellipse, see video 47, Rule 51 for more information. So this is the basics of using an ellipse to show omitted material. For more information, go see this video. But basically, if you do omitted material, you insert an ellipse. Here's some examples. The accident was caused by, and then someone deleted some information right here. So we put in 3 space periods, and there's a space before and after the ellipse. So it's space, period, space, period, space, period, space. The accident was caused by omitted material, the defendant. An AP does not put, if you were using an AP case, you would not put space between the periods. So it would be caused by space, ... space, the defendant. That's how you'd write in AP style. Remember, all AP style is always about conserving space because you're writing in a newspaper or magazine. So it makes sense that they would not put spaces here. You see the accident was, it's just another example. The accident was caused by driver error. So here you actually have a sentence before, and then you have an ellipse here. So someone deleted something, but because you have a sentence before and a sentence after, we put this period. Hopefully this makes sense. The accident was caused by driver error, period. Then we show that there's been deleted material, ... or an ellipse. In this case, comma, the evidence points to the defendant. Now we don't know if part of the first, it seems like, we don't know how many sentences were deleted in between these two. We don't know if the end of this sentence after error was deleted. Possibly there could have been a deletion before in this case. Doesn't seem like it, but who knows? You don't know, but the period just shows what becomes before and after form a complete sentence, and the ellipse shows that there's been some deleted material. For more information or more examples, go see video 47 Rule 51. So let's talk about inserted material into a direct quotation. Well, use brackets, square brackets to be more particular. So use brackets to enclose a change, addition, or comment into a direct quotation. So see Rule 47, video 47, Rule 50 for more information on brackets. And when adding emphasis to a direct quotation with italics or boldface, because sometimes you want to do that to a quotation when it somehow add emphasis, and that's the only 2 ways to get emphasis is italics or boldface. Note the change, 1, with a parenthetical comment following the quotation, or like, this is just an example, like you'd have the quotation, you have like, then you put in a parenthetical comment in parentheses, italics added. Or the other thing is you put it in the source citation or similar. Whoops, that should have been deletion. So the similar meant to be italics added or bold added. Whoops, I didn't delete that. So just you put it in a parenthetical comment or in the source citation. Just ignore this here. This is meant to be somewhere else. And for examples of using brackets for inserted material, see the examples under the allowable changes, which is going to be a future section or future section in this video. So for inserted material, you basically use brackets. So moving right along to allowable changes, and we'll get to our examples of using brackets. So what are allowable changes? Well, I've already said this before, but direct quotation should exactly match the original in wording, spelling, number, style, capitalization, and punctuation, even if the original is incorrect. So you don't go and you don't go start proofreading and editing quotations. They're exact. They should match the original exactly. Wording, capitalization, punctuation, even if it's wrong. Enclose all changes in brackets. However, the following changes are always allowable without brackets or explanation. So here I can say you match exactly, that always is true, and use brackets for any changes. But there are certain cases where you don't need brackets, and they'll make a lot of sense why. So it's you don't need brackets to change double quotation marks to single quotation marks in a run-in quotation. So you don't need to do that. So basically changing the quotation format. You don't need brackets when you remove footnotes or endnotes, callouts. The callouts for footnotes or endnotes, and you don't need brackets. You don't need but you do need to keep parenthetical comments or references. So it's okay to remove the footnotes and callout notes, but you have to keep the parenthetical comments or references. And you don't need brackets to change an in-dash or m-dash format, including deleting spaces and changing hyphens to an in-dash or m-dash. So basically, you're allowed to change the in-dash or m-dash format without brackets. And in older documents, you can change the long S to modern S. That change you can make without a bracket. So you can do these changes in a quotation without brackets. So some examples. Judge DeSoto gave the jury excellent instructions, gather facts and decide the attempted murder case in the deliberation room. And here we have a footnote. We'll get to that. This is the source citation. But here, obviously, someone changed the... oh, and I forgot to put this in brackets. Whoops. So here someone changed the case. Obviously, this was a lowercase g in the original quotation, so someone changed to capital G and put that in brackets. And then I forgot to show this one in red, but someone added attempted murder case. So the original said gather facts and decide the case in the deliberation room. Well, someone I want to add clarifying words of attempted murder, and normally I put all the changes in red, especially the punctuation in red. But this is showing an addition of these attempted murder. You put that in brackets. Sorry for not colorizing it. This store in New York City is the busiest in the state, said the company's representative. Obviously, the person said this store is the busiest in the state. Well, just for clarification, whoever quoted this wanted to add the comment that it was particular to New York City. So here we have the addition, which is in blue, and that addition to a direct quotation you put in brackets like this. The last, I think I got one after this one. On the witness stand, the Latin professor had only one answer to the accusations, whatever this Latin phrase is, and then someone decided to add the translation of the Latin phrase to error is human. And since this is an addition to the direct quotation, we put it in brackets. And the last example is the protester posted on Twitter, gather at 9 tomorrow, January 6, 2021, at the Capitol, and that was Sacramento B, the 10th of January, page A4. So here we have the first one, the first addition to the quotation is gather tomorrow. Someone wanted to add the clarification or addition of what date they were talking about, because maybe tomorrow people aren't aware of what tomorrow was or what date this is referring to, so they add the date here. Since it's in addition to the direct quotation, we put it in brackets. Now I've put the added words just in blue just to highlight it. At the Capitol, obviously probably the person spelt it with an A here, which is just a misspelling, but since it is a change to the direct quotation for the spelling, the person has changed it to an O, and to signify that they changed the letter here, they put it in brackets. So let's move on to, we're still talking about added or changed or allowable changes. Sorry. And the following changes are allowable without brackets in APA style or for a general audience like Chicago Manual style or Associated Press, and not for legal documents or documents involving textual or historical criticism. So besides the allowable changes that we covered 2 slides ago, there are some other changes that are allowable for a what we're going to call a general audience, but you would not do these changes for like legal documents or where the text is analysis of the text is critical. So that is you can change the quotation's initial letter to uppercase or lowercase to fit the sentence tense syntax. So I know I showed an example with, I think it said Judge DeSoto, and we had that change, that capitalization change. You would definitely do that in a legal document or a document involving textual criticism or historical analysis. But for a general audience like in a newspaper, you don't need to do that. You just change the capitalization. So that's what we're saying. These changes are allowable for a general audience. So you can change the initial letter. And you can also change or omit the end punctuation to fit the sentence syntax. So once again, so here we have, you change the initial letter, or you can change the end punctuation to fit the sentence syntax. You can correct obvious typographical errors like misspellings. So that's okay for a general audience. But I know the thing here is saying, but spelling, punctuation, and grammar errors in older documents are usually retained. Believe it or not, it's one of those weird quirks. So if it's more modern, people will correct the obvious typos, but in older documents, maybe from the 1700s or the 1800s, people will just leave the spelling and the punctuation the same, or the grammar errors in there, and just leave them. But for this is maybe more for a modern document, but for an isolated quotation, a correction or modernization is best stated in a footnote or parenthetical comment. And for document-wide corrections or modernization of quotations, it's best to include that in a comment in the introduction. So that way, if you're constantly, effectively what happens is that if you're using a bunch of, maybe quotations for, like, let's say the 1700s, you don't want to have, this constant, parenthetical comment or source or a note in the source citation about that you modernized the spelling or the grammar. You should just state that, and it's best to put that in the introduction, saying, you'd say, all spellings and punctuation have been modernized, and maybe important changes. You'd footnote or parenthetical comment important changes or changes of interest. So source citation, I have, probably I'm going to have, 5-7 videos of source citation, but let's just cover it in basics. You always follow, you've seen it actually in examples of here with like a superscript 1 that was actually like the source citation, but a source citation follows a direct quotation as either a footnote, I was just getting ahead of myself when I was commenting, a footnote call out, that's like I said, that's like the superscript 1 that you were seeing in those. You use a footnote for the Chicago Manual style and for the Greg's Reference Manual for following those, or as an in-text citation, and that's if you're using MLA or APA style. So footnote, place a footnote after the closing quotation mark and after any punctuation except a dash. So if you had a closing quotation or you had a period, closing quotation mark, then you immediately put the footnote. If ever you go back, I don't know if I have some examples of this, but basically go back a slide or two and you'll see some examples. For an in-text citation, well, there's basically two types or two situations: a running quotation. For a run-in, so place the in-text citation for a run-in text citation after the closing quotation mark and before any punctuation. So it would basically be, you'd have your direct quotation, close quote, in-text citation, period. For a block formatted quotation, place an in-text source citation after the quotation's last line and after the terminal punctuation. So, like I said, you can back up a slide or two and look for some examples. But actually in the next video when I cover I will be covering run-in quotations and block formatted quotations, and the example of source citation will be in there. So this is just an overview. This is really to say, with a direct quotation, you need to put the source of the quotation, and it's rather going to appear as a footnote, which is like a superscript number, or it's going to appear as an in-text source citation, which is basically like a parenthetical comment with the actual source citation. So that's the gist of source citation. Like I said, I have the next video. Just look at the next video for examples, or also for the source citation videos. So what about using sic? So use sic, which is Latin for in this manner, after a word to show the direct quotation accurately reproduces a spelling or grammatical error in the original. Basically, you're saying, because people are going to read something and read a mistake, and you want to show that you didn't do the error copying the direct quotation. The error is in the original. So to show the error is in the original, you use sic. That's what it's made for, is that basically in this manner. And sic occurs in italics unless the document is MLA style. MLA style does not put sic in italics. Here you've actually seen I'm using sic in italics because basically every other style guide uses sic in italics except for MLA. And now on to the nuances of using sic. Only use sic if the error is likely to confuse the reader. There's no reason to use sic if the error is not going to confuse the reader. So instead of using sic, consider inserting a clarifying word in brackets. Remember, we talked about inserting comments into a direct quotation. And if you insert comments into a direct quotation, use brackets. So, if you have maybe you should, instead of using sic, you should insert some clarifying words, or maybe the correct word. You just insert that in brackets. Or add a footnote, or clarify it, or make a comment in a footnote or a parenthetical comment. Basically, I would actually say avoid using sic. I would actually say try not to use sic. Use something else. I would first add a clarifying word in brackets, and then I'd probably add something to a footnote or parenthetical comment, and then if that wasn't going to work, I'd probably then do sic. To me, using sic is the last choice. And using it to show, or maybe even in the back of your mind, to belittle the quotation, showing how it's full of grammatical errors, is not the thing to do. So, but there are those people, and then there's the other people that I call, they want to use sic all the time. I'd actually say the opposite is true. Look for ways not to use sic. Do something else first. That's it for this video. So if you'd like to get notifications for this series, please click subscribe. If you like the video, please hit like, and check out links to books and videos in the description.